Hello and welcome. I'm Jennifer Roig-Francolí, creator of The Art of Freedom for Musicians. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about patience and how patience is the key to making your practice perfect, whatever that means. So, as I said, I'm Jennifer. I'm also the host of the free Facebook group that I would like to invite you to join. Is the Musicians Mind Body Practice Tribe. And in that group, if you're not a member already, we discuss all kinds of things related to music making from a holistic perspective. Because if you haven't met me yet, you should know that I'm a professional violinist. I've been all my life. And I'm also a certified Alexander technique teacher. So I coach musicians in groups and privately, all online, how to become better musicians, make better music, and enjoy themselves more with whole body, mind, soul, spirit, joy, and well-being. So, on to the topic of the day, practice and patience makes perfect. So I thought, before we start, I want to say, by the way, hello to everybody coming on. I see Bob and Kay and Angel are here. Thank you so much for showing up live. And if you are watching the replay, please just say hello and then I'll know you were here. And if you have any comments or questions at any time, you know where to put them here. And you can always message me privately at any time or email me. Okay, so I actually looked up patience, and this is the first thing that came up when I Googled it. And it makes sense to me. The first definition is the capacity to accept or tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. Now, I still think it's possible to be patient and a little upset. So I'm not such a perfectionist that it has to be perfect patience, all right? I think it's relative. And emotions come and go, feelings come and go, and I have no problem with it being colored a little bit by frustration. But I guess pure patience is neutral, let's say. But we're not going for that kind of perfectionistic idea of patience, at least I'm not here. And I also wanted to talk about what practice is, because I think it's easy to lose sight of what practice is, what the point of practicing is, because it's really easy to have our goals off in the future take over in precedence, so that we prioritize the goal that we want to achieve over what we're doing on a daily, regular basis. And the practice, the real practice, is what we do from moment to moment, those steps that we take along the way to take us eventually to our goal. So having defined those two things, at least in a way that's good enough for me and hopefully for you out there, let's talk about what patience is not. Obviously, patience is not impatience. And when I was thinking about impatience, by the way, here's a little quick tip that I find really useful for myself. I used to think of myself as a patient person until I started realizing how impatient I was, and actually that started to become very obvious when I had kids. I started to realize that I'm actually an impatient person. So that was an eye-opener, but that was a long time ago. And since then, I have come upon a way to deal with that by flipping my perspective on myself. And instead of calling myself an impatient person, which is kind of condemning me to being impatient forever, if I identify myself with that, I would rather think of myself as a very patient person with some impatient tendencies. So how do you like that? I'd love to hear from you if you find that useful. Is anybody else out there, do you have impatient tendencies? Okay, and I'm talking about life, you know, on your from day-to-day life, not just about your music making, but also if we hone down and get specific as musicians, and we're talking about musical practice, not just life practice of living, do you tend to be impatient when you practice, or do you find that you're really present moment by moment, and do you not get frustrated? You're just, like that definition, what was it? You're able to tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. Anybody perfect out there? I think it's very rare, but there are people, and I do find that amateurs tend to fall more in this category, people who just do it for the love of it, and you absolutely love working on your music in the minute details from moment to moment. So if you never get frustrated, upset, or impatient, bravo, this video is not for you. No, the opposite of patience, it makes me think of impatience, meaning I am not satisfied with my experience of the present moment right now. I'm not satisfied with what I'm able to do in the moment. I am criticizing myself for not being able to make the kind of progress I wish I could be making. Sometimes that can lead to burnout, lack of motivation, because you just never feel like you're getting anywhere. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Oh, I see Kay has a comment. I'm getting very impatient with Facebook because I can't get my sound to work. Okay, so now in this moment, Kay, is where you get to practice. So let's talk about what happens before I talk about a solution. By the way, Kay, thanks for typing, and that was great. Irena, hello, Irene says, yes, here also. I thought I was patient, but now I'm ill for more than a month, and I can't practice a lot. Oh, I'm so impatient. I'm sorry to hear that you've been ill for so long. You know, just as an aside, if you're a musician and you get sick and you can't practice, there are ways to keep practicing mentally that you don't have to use your instrument, and I can help you explore that if you're curious. It actually can be even more powerful when you practice mentally without your instrument. So I know it's hard to do anything when you're ill, but if you did want to do something related to practice, you can still do a little bit that can actually be very effective if you know how to do it. So just wanted to throw that out there, but I do hope that you get better very soon. Okay, so moving on. When you're dissatisfied with what you're doing in the moment, and you're criticizing yourself, and you're getting kind of negative and trying harder, what happens to your body? Right? What happens? Let's just imagine right now that you're in the middle of a practice session and you've been working on the same passage over and over and over again, and it's just not working. And you're like, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it this time. And you try harder and it doesn't work. And then you get really impatient because you're spending so much time on this passage and you just can't get anywhere. Does this sound familiar? So imagine if that's happening to you, what happens in your body when you're thinking that way? Now, I would bet that if you're thinking that way, and I'd almost bet my life on it, this is how firmly I believe this about the mind-body connection. What you think is what you get in the body. So if you're thinking that way, like here, Rachel says, it gets real tense. Yes, and Angel says your body gets tight and tense. Exactly. When you think that way, when you get intense about something, you get in tension in your body, all right? And what happens then? You tend to rush. You're kind of out of time. You're out of sync because you're pushing forward into the future. You're trying really hard to get somewhere that you're not because you're not satisfied with the present where you are. And as a musician, this does not work. When you do that, you're making everything harder for yourself. And it makes your practice far from perfect, let's say. So when you're pushing, you're thinking, you're pushing your body. When you do that, you're off balance, literally. You're not centered and aligned and in balance with a good flow. In fact, you block the energy with that excess tension. And when you block energy, it's harder to move your body. because the flow is not happening, or it's stifled or impeded throughout, and especially in certain places, right? So if you're a violinist like me, and you're getting impatient, your body gets tight, and then it gets harder to actually manipulate your fingers. So your technique actually gets harder. So it's really a form of self-sabotage when you allow yourself to go down the path of impatience, right? Things get harder, your technique gets harder, you start to have less pleasure from what you're doing when you're impatient. You know, in an extreme form, if you let it go on for very long, you can even get burned out psychologically, and you can even produce pain, physical pain in your body. And all of that, you're not suffering. Why would you want to do that to yourself? Any of this sound familiar? Let me come over to the comments for a second before I go on to proposing a solution for this, other than just be patient, which isn't going to do you much good. Yes, Angel says, the music can't flow through the tension. That's right. It tries, and somehow you can still make music, but it's just not going to be, it's not going to be the music that you really want, right? Even if you start nailing the octaves or getting the notes in tune because you're trying so hard, you're not going to have the quality of sound for sure if you're pushing that stemming from impatience. Right. Oh, Barb says very common. Yes. So I think this topic of impatience is universal. I think it's actually human to be impatient. And then you can be relatively more or less impatient. But I do find, and some people are just through their temperament, through their natures, they're predisposed to being calmer and more patient, or being more intense and active and pushing. Right? So temperament has something to do with it, and upbringing has something to do with it. And yet there is still relative tendency to impatience, or more or less impatience, right? And so that's where the practice comes in. The real practice that we need to do in our moment-to-moment daily life is to be present as much as possible. Because when you're really present to what's actually happening in your mind, in your body, in your soul, in your emotions, in your surroundings, when you are aware of the present moment, you can't be impatient. You just can't, unless, the funny thing is, you can be aware of your impatience. But if you don't fight with that, and then you just accept your impatience, you start to be patient with yourself. So that's the funny thing. If you're impatient with your own impatience, that makes it worse. But if you can be patient with your own impatience, you've got it made. That is the best of humanity, I believe. So that is the true practice. You can practice that throughout your daily life. If you have kids, they're very good teachers, I've discovered. I have teenagers now, and boy, that does try my patience at times. So you can practice this in your daily life. And then if you're improving that in daily life, by default, you are improving how you practice your instrument, and you will be more patient with yourself in your practice session. And vice versa. They kind of bleed together. You can't just separate your practice time and who you are as a musician from who you are the rest of the day, right? They influence each other. So this is the solution, that the way I see it. And Irena, I am so very happy that you say this is good advice for you right now. I'm really happy that you're identifying with this. It's making sense. So here's another key. I mean, the awareness of being present, it's spurred on by curiosity. So if you can get curious about the present moment, that is it's like a key that opens up the door to more possibilities. It opens up the door for the possibility of a different response to what you're feeling in yourself. So if you get impatient, get curious about that, right? Start with curiosity and self-reflection, self-observation, but without impatience about that, right? So the practice of being present brings you more into psychophysical balance when you get curious about the present moment and you add in a curiosity about ease in your body, like I teach to my Alexander technique students, and also in the Musicians Mind Body Practice Tribe. That's my free Facebook group. If you're not a member, please come on over and join. We do something called the cycle. The cycle is a primal Alexander etude created by my partner Mio Morales, and it's a wonderful practice that takes only 2 minutes. It's like the best warm-up for your musical practice ever. In fact, if you go to my group, you'll see there's a free 5-day practice challenge that helps you bring the cycle into your practice every day. It takes 2 minutes, and it will really, really help you be present to yourself in mind and body, and it will introduce curiosity about ease in your system. And when you go through this 2-minute process, the impatience falls away, or at least it's reduced, depending on how much you started with. It will absolutely be reduced after the 2 minutes. And that's all you can ask for, is a change in direction. Are you going in the direction of more ease and more patience and acceptance with yourself? Or are you going in the direction of more tension and impatience and needing what you can't have right now? It comes down to that very simple black and white option. And you get to choose. That's the thing. So how do you do this? It's called constructive thinking. And you need to embody it. It's where you start integrating all these aspects of yourself and getting curious about the present, as I've said a number of times already. So if you're ever tempted to give up when you're practicing, anybody out there ever feel like, oh, this is a waste of time and never going to get anywhere? If you ever feel like that, you start feeling burned out and you lose your motivation. I just did a live video in the Practice Tribe just this morning, which gives you my 3-step motivator practice. It's the stick and carrot motivator practice that I give my coaching clients. And it's just a visualization and taking an action step, little baby step. That's just to help you get motivated if you've started feeling like you're so impatient you just want to give up. And so try out that practice that I just posted in the tribe. And if you want to take it further and if you realize that you need to work on improving your mindset for music making, I do want to tell you about my what is it called? The Musician's Mindset Power Toolkit. It's a very powerful way to step into the world of the Alexander technique. But even more than that, it's my way of thinking about it, starting from mindset. You've got to get control over this thing up here. When you have control over this, you can choose to be less impatient, and you can take action on that when you embody it. You can't leave out the body. Impatience, you can't be impatient without your body. You can't be frustrated without your body. It all translates into physical tension. So yeah, you can't separate those, but you got to start with mindset. So I just posted the link, I just posted the link to the toolkit I mentioned, and you could get started with that and let me know how it goes. And if you have any questions at any time, please let me know. Before I leave, I am going to just take a quick peek at the comments again and see if anything has popped up here. Okay, I hope it looks like you had to leave because your sound wasn't working. Sorry about that. I hope you were able to catch the replay. Let's see. Yes. Okay. It looks like the comments I'm seeing here looks like you're on the same page with me, which is great. And let's continue the conversation on patience and impatience in your musical practice in the Musician's Mind Body Practice Tribe. And let's go from there, and then it'll be more of a two-way. All right? Thank you for being here. Happy practicing. Don't get impatient with your impatience. Just observe it, be yourself, and have lots of fun. That's the most important thing. Get curious, have fun, enjoy yourself, and lots of love is what it's always about. So take care. Bye-bye.